Hello. My co-author Palina Pancheva and I are presenting a talk on an experiment for verbal metaphor identification in Russian texts with a multi-feature classifier. Contemporary linguistics use metaphor as a crucial cognitive tool with which we conceptualize the reality and reason about complex and abstract matters by analogy in terms of simple physical body-related experiences. Corpus evidence suggests that 5 to 20% of words in a discourse are metaphoric, or every third sentence contains a metaphoric occurrence. Not surprisingly, that metaphor identification poses a very interesting challenge to natural language processing, and advancing this research can significantly promote efficiency of NLP applications in a wide range, from machine translation to question answering systems to opinion mining systems and so on. To the best of our knowledge, there are not so many systems which address metaphor identification in Russian. Some of them operate under the conceptual metaphor paradigm. That is, they consider that linguistic expressions in text and speech are merely surface representations of deep underlying conceptual mappings from concrete source domains to abstract target domains. Other systems operate under the linguistic metaphor paradigm. This is, they do not make such far-reaching theoretical assumptions and merely aim to identify any metaphoric language, any stretches of metaphoric language. The system we report today belongs to the second paradigm. A few words about the experimental corpus. It contains sentences, each of which contains one of the 20 polysemous verbs presented in this slide. The sentences were drawn from a large-scale web corpus, Root1010, and the number of sentences amounts to about 7,000. The subcorpus of each verb is balanced by the class. However, the entire corpus is not balanced across verbs. That is, the number of sentences per verb varies within a wide range. The verbs for the corpus were selected specifically so as to possess certain linguistic features. These features are, in our view, these features may be crucial for the performance. These linguistic properties may be crucial for the performance of the features we learn in we use in machine learning. Therefore, I'd like to dwell a bit on these linguistic properties of the verbs. Firstly, the verb has to have a distinct central literal meaning. By this, we mean that there has to be a meaning which is a typical meaning of accomplishment or activity. And this meaning authorizes a two-actant construction with at least two actants, the agent and the patient, or the theme. The agent belongs to the semantic class of human beings, and all the other major actants refer to physical or concrete entities. Apart from that, the verb have to has a transparent derivational structure, a small number of meanings, and it must have any grammaticalized, desemantized meanings. All the sentences are divided into the two classes, metaphoric and non-metaphoric. The non-metaphoric class is comprised by the sentences where the verb is used either in the central literal meaning or in the meaning which is related to the central meaning via a diathetic shift or a close metonymic shift. The metaphoric class is more heterogeneous. It contains 3 types of sentences. The first one, the largest one, are sentences with conventionalized metaphors. that is fixed, established meanings of polysemous words. For example, for the verb to beat, to blow a trumpet, these sentences will contain conventionalized metaphor. Okay, the second type of sentences in the metaphoric class are unconventional creative meanings. That is when a certain phenomenon is described by a word, the semantic structure of which, or the lexicosemantic combinability of which normally does not allow this word to be used to describe this thing. And the last class, type of sentences in the metaphoric class are fixed idiomatic expressions. The entire corpus was annotated by only one annotator. However, we conducted a test to prove the reliability of our annotation, with 3 annotators having annotated 20% of sentences from each verb. And we achieved a strong inter-annotator agreement of 0.91, which supports the reliability of our annotation. Okay, now to the features that we used in our machine learning experiments. To obtain our distributional semantic vectors, we used we experimented with 2 pre-trained word embeddings models from Andrei Kutuzov and Elizaveta Kuzyenko. The first model was trained on a relatively small and well-balanced corpus of Russian Wikipedia and the Russian National Corpus, and the second model was trained on a large-scale word corpus array. Both models were trained with continuous skip-gram algorithm. To compute the semantic vectors for our sentences, we used the semantic similarity measures. We proceeded from the assumption that a metaphorically used verb would constitute a semantic anomaly, would be semantically deviant from its context. To get the similarity measures, we first compute the mean of all the pairwise similarities in the context window with the verb. Then do the same but without the verb, and then subtract. In one of the experiments, we tried to make up for the semantic values of the words which were missing from the word embeddings model by substituting it with the mean value from the context window. Okay, that was about the semantic vectors. The second type of vectors we used are lexical co-occurrence vectors. We relied on the assumption that different meanings of one word develop different models of lexicosyntactic, lexicosemantic combinability. For example, the non-metaphoric meaning of the verb to spray would occur with lexemes from the semantic class of liquids and powder-like substances, while the metaphoric meaning of this word would co-occur with the semantic class of valuable resources. We experimented with several association measures, and the delta P metric proved to be best. It's a very simple metric. You take the number of occurrences of a lemma in the metaphoric subcorpus divided by the size of the metaphoric subcorpus, minus the number of occurrences of the same lemma divided in the metaphoric corpus divided by the size of the non-metaphoric corpus. And the third type of vectors in our experiment is morphosyntactic occurrences. The motivation behind these vectors was that different different meanings of a word license different morphosyntactic constructions. We played around with several configurations of morphological tags which contain different fullness of morphological information about verbs and nouns. The simplest ones contained only only indication of the part of speech. Secondly, we use tags with full morphological information about verbs and nouns, and the truncated version with only the most important morphological features. Then we tested different pairwise combinations of these configurations. Meanwhile, all other parts of speech were always represented by the part of speech tag, and prepositions and punctuations were always represented by their lemmas. In addition to that, we also tested unigrams, different n-grams of morphological vectors, which were computed with the same delta p metric. The experiment was designed so as to, for each sentence in the corpus, to identify whether the occurrence of the verb in it is metaphoric or non-metaphoric. We conducted 21 experiments, one for each of the individual verbs and one for the joint data set of the 20 verbs. We used the SVM classifier with linear kernel and five-fold cross-validations. And the classifiers were trained on different combinations of the three features. The results. We found that in the aggregate terms, across the data set, large size windows worked better than small windows, a window of 5 words around the verb, and a full sentence window. It didn't make much difference which of the word embeddings models we used. Similarly, there was not much difference whether we tried to substitute for the missing semantic values or not. From all the morphological configurations, only the poorly informed ones with only indications of parts of speech did not performed poorly. All the others performed at approximately the same level. Unigrams and bigrams are at par with each other, while trigrams fall behind. The results I'm going to talk about below will be reported for the model trained with a full sentence window, with the non-augmented Arrhenium word embeddings model, and unigrams with full morphological tags. This is a fragment of our results table. The columns indicate performance of models trained on different features: semantic, lexical, morphological, semantic and lexical, and so on. Generally speaking, the performance for each individual verb ranges from 0.77 to 0.96. The blue indicates the best result for each individual verb. On the combined data set of the 20 verbs, the best results are achieved with a model trained with lexical and morphological vectors, and the model trained with semantic, lexical, and morphological vectors, 0.93. And both of these accuracies have comparable F1 measure, precision and recall of around 0.9293. We found that semantical and morphological vectors, either individually or in combination, never work well. Well, as for morphology, we presume that it's simply just not informative enough to differentiate metaphor from non-metaphor. As for the semantic vectors, we think that much of the problem lies in the nature of the state-of-the-art distributional semantic models, which conflate different meanings of a word. The most interesting observation from our result, in my view, is this generalizability of the models based on lexical, morphological, and semantic features. Sorry. What does it mean? It means that there is something common in all the lexical contexts of all the metaphoric meanings of all the 20 verbs, as contrasted with the lexical context of all the non-metaphoric meanings of all the 20 verbs. We hypothesize that it might be the juxtaposition of abstract and concrete vocabulary. Similarly, there should be something common in the morphosyntactic contexts of all the metaphoric meanings and non-metaphoric meanings. Presumably, that might be the animacy of nouns. However, this analysis is currently underway and will be reported in our future work. Okay, how do we stack up against the other comparable models? Not bad, in fact. 0.83 as compared to 0.82 as compared to 0.67, 66, and 76 and 86. Especially considering that the model reported by Yulia Tsirkov and her colleagues used pre-filtered triples and tuples of words. As for our experiment from last year, it was run in a similar setting, but we used only distributional semantic features. However, there might be one serious limitation to our results. They might hold true only for the verbs of the type that we chose for the experiment. That is very good from the metaphorical point of view, verbs which have a distinct central meaning, which have a meaning of typical activity or accomplishment, at least two actants. The agent is a human being, and the other actants denote physical entities. It might be presumed that if we take verbs which are lexicosemantically different from our verbs, then our observations may not be applicable. That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer your questions if I can.
Questions? Questions? So, no questions so far. I have a few. First, in your talk, I really enjoyed the structure of the paper. So you came up with the docs, you came up with the data set, you did some classical machine learning experiments, like you did SVM, with linear kernel, and so on. But is it your own data set? So you came up and you built the data set of metaphor, and I actually maybe not that curious, but have you released it?
Yes, it's publicly available. You can find the link in the paper.
I didn't, so maybe I will just...
Yeah, it's right there.
Good. Very good. And the idea is, so you are using SVM to find out which metaphors can be identified, but have you done the error analysis, which case according, so which case?
No, unfortunately not for this talk. I mean, I'm currently working on it.
It's always interesting not just to look at the accuracy and that's where it's also interesting to look at what are the typical false positives, what are the typical false negatives.
Absolutely, I agree with this, but it's quite a massive work because you have to analyze entire sentences along several lines, and it's very scrupulous work, and it's still going on.
Okay, how big is the corpus?
It's about 7,000 sentences.
You annotated this with your thoughts, or it's a lot of work?
Well, it's binary annotation, so it's quite doable.
It's doable, but it's how much time did you spend?
A few days, I don't know. I'm a linguist, I'm used to it.
I'm not doing this. Okay, more questions? Yes, please.
Yeah, I have a simple question. So, what are the next steps for you guys in like coffee next year? So the building is kind of multiplier from older. How many words you can technically process in a given time? So that the classifier could be more universal and applied for practical projects.
Yeah, that's a very good question. The only matter is I'm in the last week of my PhD program, so I try to make most of this remaining time. I think I would like to maybe quickly collect another data set, a smaller one, of say 10 other verbs of the similar type, and train the corpus on these 20 verbs, and then test on the new verbs, the unseen verbs. That's my idea, probably.
Thank you very much for talking today.
Thank you.
Really, really cool.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the question.
Do you know if there are accuracies between different classes of metaphors, like unconventional, dimensionalized, and
Not yet. Yeah, it's extremely interesting. It is. Yeah.
Okay, more questions? Sorry? Okay, no questions. I have one more question. Maybe it's not just a question, it's a suggestion. You said that distributional features like artifact, you use Rust Course, right?
Right.
Everybody uses Rust Course.
It's a one-stop shop.
Yeah, already work. At the conferences like ACL and other ones, there is a big trend like using retrofitting of word vectors to fit your particular task. So maybe it's a good idea for you to take into account the retrofitting paper. I think it's published in 2014, or maybe I can't remember the exact date. And the idea is you can specialize your word vectors using either some message passing or with web propagation to fit your task. Maybe it's a good idea to come up with these kinds of features, which are retrofit vectors, and use these vectors, which are dense ones, to either improve the quality of your information.
Well,
I think it's really more machine learning rather than linguistic, but I think you can try thinking about it like